Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and a bunch of new Pokemon just got unbanned for the Love Cup. Now the Love Cup meta already felt pretty established after the first few days, but with a big round of unbans, things just got interesting. This team features two Pokemon that just got unbanned for the Love Cup, Galarian Moltres and Flamigo. After Flamigo's standout performance in the viewer-requested team video, I knew Flamigo had to get a video of its own, and Galarian Moltres proved to be the perfect safe switch, setting up Flamigo to be a devastating closer. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at Flamigo in action in the Love Cup. Hopping into the first match, picking up the worst case scenario lead, leading Magcargo into Krookodile. I safe switch into Galarian Moltres, my opponent responds with a Trash Wormadam, and Galarian Moltres will have the ability to make a play for a switch advantage here. Fly is going to be no shielded by the Wormadam. I intentionally did not build up to the Brave Bird because I just simply did not want my opponent to shield. I'm more than happy to shield my opponent full sets of Bug Buzz fishing for a debuff, but without landing the move and without getting a debuff, Galarian Moltres gets a full farm down. This means I am absolutely loaded on energy as my opponent brings back into Krookodile. Krookodile is really not going to appreciate the speed at which Galarian Moltres is making it to these flies. Galarian Moltres makes it to a second fly. Double shield comes out from the Krookodile. Krookodile gets the Mud Slap down, but they have lost so much ground. In comes Flamigo, and Flamigo should be resisting both Crunch and Brick Break. They fire off the Crunch. Flamigo is very glassy. In comes Shadow Milotic, and goodbye Shadow Milotic. Flamigo makes it to the Brave Bird. Brave Bird picks up the one-hit KO. Down goes Milotic. Back in comes Krookodile, but the damage is done. Flamigo farms down, and that is a good game. We've got a tricky lead in game number 2, Magcargo into Shadow Crustle. Now that is a winning matchup for Crustle, but my opponent has better answers to Magcargo, so they switch out and safe switch into Milotic. Milotic is going to be answered with Galarian Moltres. I don't have a resistance to water on my team, which is a bit of a worry when one of my Pokemon is Magcargo, but Galarian Moltres will do a very nice job at generating a shield advantage. I'm more than happy just to let the Moltres go at this point. My opponent already debuffed me, which means that I am going to get knocked out by the next Wrap and a Dragon Tail, but my goal, if at all possible, is just to try and set up Flamigo, because Flamigo is an incredibly scary Pokemon if you can get it some kind of advantage. Milotic is going to outpace and make the Aqua Tail. They actually go for a Wrap, which in my eyes is a very, very smart play. I always have to respect the Aqua Tail, so Wrap just gives them a free defense drop onto the Magcargo for whatever they send in. They send in Scrafty, and oh my goodness, Flamigo's about to feast. My opponent sends back in the Shadow Crustle. Shadow Crustle, that is not enough Fury Cutters for a Rock Wrecker. You need 13 for the first. I no shield. X-Scissor is double resisted. They were just looking for chip damage, but unfortunately Flamigo is about to sweep. Upper hand is gonna land. Look at the damage. Down goes Crustle. Back in comes Scrafty, but the damage is done. Scrafty is never getting to a second Thunder Punch. They go for the upper hand, but Flamigo's doubled up on upper hands, and this game is over. My opponent knows it. They no shield. Down goes Scrafty, and that's a good game. We pick up a pretty nice lead in the next match, Magcargo into Electrode. Now, Electrode does have a pretty awkward time against Incinerate Magcargo, just because Magcargo is able to fire off the first Rock Tomb on perfect charge stack timing. Rock Tomb would do big damage that forces a shield and a switch out into Rotom. Now, unfortunately, Rotom is going to survive the Sucker Punches long enough to make a Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt, I assume, would be one-shotting my Galarian Moltres, so I'm forced to put up the shield, but I do exit with quite a lot of HP remaining. And that's going to be very helpful, because I'm about to take big super effective damage from Discharge. Discharge is a very weak attack, but Electrode has a very good attack stat. Here, I throw one in the Brave Bird, hoping that by debuffing my defense, the Volt Switch is going to knock me out, and it does. I'm able to get that Electrode very low. In comes Magcargo. In the back is Milotic. I bank a Rock Tomb for later and send in Flamigo. Flamigo will be able to tank one charge move here. They are going to go for the Wrap, debuffing my defense, and I'm just going to look to farm up and fire off the upper hand. I did build up to a potential Brave Bird, so this should grab a shield from my opponent, and it does. I'm now going to make it to the upper hand, and I didn't see a sneak. It appears my opponent accidentally played to a CMP tie that they're never going to win. Even if they did get the farm down, I still have a shield and a Rock Tomb available to CMP tie them with Magcargo. So either way, the game was done. But now, it is definitely over, as Milotic does not have a charge stack to throw at the Magcargo, and it appears my opponent has forced closed their application. Rock Tomb knocks out Milotic. We're going to have to wait for a little bit for the last little bit of Electrode to re-hit the field. Electrode hits the field. Oh, it looks like they came back for a little bit. Volt Switch lands, but that's going to be a win. Picking up a terrible lead in the next match, leading Magcargo into Solrock. Now, Soul Rock is a big core breaker for this team. It shreds Magcargo and it shreds Flamigo as well. So the fact that they stay in and take a bunch of Sucker Punch damage is really, really nice for me. I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back flies, bluffing a potential Brave Bird, hoping my opponent will put up the shield. But they're not going to fall for it. The good news for me is that even though they ended up calling that, a second fly should still threaten a knockout. They fire off the body slam, I return fire with the fly. Maybe I can try and get aggressive here and try and go for a body slam catch back onto the Magcargo. So I go for the catch, but my opponent is too patient. They will get to land a Shadow Ball, but I just got a 40 energy head start on the Magcargo. So when my opponent sends back in the Soul Rock, I know I'm going to guaranteed outpace and make a Rock Tomb. They're going to lose almost their entire health bar here if they no shield. They no shield, but they survive. The Soul Rock, the good IVs, barely able to hang on. They make the Rock Slide. That takes the knockout. But now I can get a 1 double kick head start on the deadliest closer in the Love Cup, Flamigo. My opponent reveals their final Pokemon is Clefable, and that's not what I was hoping to see. I'm going to need a successful bait to have any chance in this game. If this upper hand is shielded, the game comes down to a 50-50. Because if it's shielded, I'll make the Brave Bird when they make the Meteor Mash. Will they go for the catch? Will they throw the move? And they go for the catch onto Licky Licky. And unfortunately, that is going to do me in this game. I send in the Moltres, but the damage is done. It was a 50-50 call. Both of us made the charge attack at the exact same time, but I didn't get the call right, and unfortunately, I lose that game. And it's not getting easier in the next match as I lead Magcargo into another Crocodile. I safe switch into Galarian Moltres. My opponent responds with a Lomomola, and at this point, I'm pretty confident that I've already won the game. Alomamola's slow pacing is very exploitable in this meta, as if they want to land any kind of meaningful charge attack pressure, they're going to have to farm up, I believe, 10 waterfalls to make it to a Hydro Pump. And that is just not sustainable. If I correctly shield the Hydro Pump, I can probably just Sucker Punch them down and exit with a ton of energy. I do get the shield call right on the Hydro Pump. They realize they're in trouble. They pivot into Shadow Milotic. Shadow Milotic will fire off a charge attack, but I should be able to make the back-to-back flies here. They go for the Aqua Tail. I am just shy of the Fly plus Brave Bird double up. It's going to be very, very close. The Fly bait is going to be shielded. I make it to the Brave Bird, and Galarian Moltres almost knocked out an entire Alomomola, gets the knockout on the Shadow Milotic, and back in comes Crocodile. Unfortunately for Crocodile, there's no way out. In comes Flamigo. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We've got mirror leads in the next match, Magcargo into Magcargo. My opponent is running Ember, and this is a very rare moment in which Ember can actually outperform Incinerate. Ember is going to give them faster pacing, meaning that they're going to win this matchup. Here, I end up throwing the Rock Tomb on alignment instead of throwing one Incinerate in the move, because the last time I played against an Ember Magcargo lead, they ended up catching the Rock Tomb out onto a fighter, and that really led to an uncomfortable scenario. So I end up throwing on alignment intentionally just to guarantee that that move would land on its intended target. While I can't win this matchup, what I can do is play the ones and get them pretty low. Because if I can get them into farm down range for Flamigo, we already know that Flamigo energy goes absolutely everywhere. Rock Tomb lands, my Magcargo gets KO'd, in comes Flamigo, they pivot out into Medicham, and I have a pretty nice answer to Medicham, as in comes Galarian Moltres. I wanted to bank Flamigo energy, but I cannot give them too much of an energy head start. I need to ensure that I can make the fly before they get to their second charge attack. They go for Dynamic Punch. It does do more damage than Ice Punch in this matchup. Fly lands, but Medicham is so bulky that it's able to tank the Fly and make it to Dynamic Punch number 2. That's going to put Moltres very low. They get a farm down with Licky Licky, but now it's Flamigo time. Flamigo will get to inflict massive damage with Upper Hand. Upper Hand is going to be no-shielded by the Licky Licky. Licky Licky farms up. There's the pivot into Magcargo. Magcargo makes a last-second move, and I realize that I have just thrown this game. If I just threw the Upper Hand into the Magcargo, I had a guaranteed win condition because I would have exited with a second Upper Hand and one charge stack priority over the Licky Licky, but I committed to the farm down. I didn't see the win con, and unfortunately, that cost me the game. We get the Dream lead in the next match, leading Magcargo into Wormadam. My opponent safe switches into Soul Rock, and thank goodness, because this is the only Pokemon on my team that has a good matchup into Soul Rock. Even though Rock Slide will hit for big super effective damage, I know that Moltres cannot get Psywave down after. So I'm just going to fire off the Fly and ensure that I win the Zero Shield scenario. My opponent puts up the Shield, which is a pretty big surprise to me, because this should allow me to shield up the Weather Ball, farm down, and exit with a charge attack loaded, which is a pretty big swing for me. Or at the very least be one off of that charge stack, so when they bring back in the Wormadam, Wormadam is going to take some pretty considerable damage. Fly lands, Wormadam farms down. I'm just going to bring in Flamigo, as I'm anticipating it'll be some kind of water type in the back, and it's a Lomomola, And unfortunately for my opponent, this game is over. Look how slow Alomomola is. Before they can make it to a single Psychic, I'm going to make it to a second Upper Hand. That would have been charge attack priority to a Psychic if they ended up throwing it. That's just the speed of Flamigo. Their only hope is an attempt at a farm down, and it's just not going to happen. Flamigo too spammy. We make the Upper Hand, KO Alomomola. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We move to the next match. Unfortunately, at the top of the hour, the snowy weather went away, and we pick up a good lead, leading Macargo into Electrode. My opponent safe switches into their own Flamigo, and this is very, very scary, because both Macargo and Galarian Moltres are not a big fan of this Pokemon. I send in my Flamigo, get the shield call right on the Brave Bird, and suddenly all the momentum's right back with me. Upper Hand shielded up by my opponent, no defense drop there, but I'm just going to double shield and commit to a farm down. My opponent highly likely to bait with the Upper Hand, because if they do, they should make it to a last second Upper Hand. But the good news for me is that I have a resistance to Upper Hand and I haven't debuffed myself, so I will be able to hang on. The bad news, however, is that I'm definitely getting KO'd by the Shadow Electrode Volt Switch, meaning that I'm only going to get one of my 2 stored Upper Hands. So I fire off the Upper Hand is going to land, and I'm going to send in Macargo. My opponent not pivoting out, and they are almost forced to shield this, because if they do not, then it's guaranteed that their final Pokemon is going to be debuffed. So they put up the shield. In the back is Medicham, and I should be in a winning position to close out this game. Galarian Moltres reaching for the fly, unfortunately can't quite get there, as my opponent will go for the Ice Punch. But since they're going for Ice Punch, I'm very confident. If 2 Dynamics did not knock me out, 2 Ice Punches definitely will not take the KO. This will allow me to properly overfarm with the Moltres, ensuring that I am 1 off the fly. They've already taken so much damage on this Shadow Electrode that even a resisted fly will be enough to secure the win. Back in comes the Electrode. They can't throw their loaded discharge because they need it for the Macargo. Fly takes the knockout, and we get the win. Picking up a pretty solid lead in the next match, Macargo into Rotom. My opponent's going to be pivoting out, safe switching into Licky Licky, and I'm more than happy just to stay in this matchup with Macargo and play it out. I could potentially consider bringing in the Moltres here, but I decide to send in Flamigo. Flamigo, it's not the bulkiest Pokemon around, and Shadow Ball will hit quite hard even at -1, so the moment I brought it in, I realized that I made a pretty large error and I should have just brought in the Moltres, because Moltres would have absorbed the Body Slams no problem. Flamigo just gets strictly knocked out, so a pretty massive error there by me, as I would have tanked the debuff Body Slams for days on the Galarian Moltres. And now my opponent reveals their final Pokemon in the back is Scrafty. The good news here is my opponent is ABA weak to the Galarian Moltres. The bad news is, if they're on Power Up Punch, I'm going to definitely lose. However, the fact that they didn't throw Red away makes me believe they don't have it, and they end up going for Thunder Punch. If they have Upper Hand, they should have gone for the Upper Hand trying to fish for a debuff. They do get a very nice catch onto Rotom, but this is just going to set up massive farm for the Moltres. So I can send in the Moltres, bank a move, send in Macargo. This shouldn't be enough energy for a Thunderbolt, I believe, so I no shield, holding my breath, and it's just going to be the Ominous Wind. The Incinerate is going to register as they fire off Upper Hand. I put up the shield. I'm just going to immediately undertap the Overheat, and it turns out they're Thunder Punch Foul Play, so they're actually not running a Fighting type charge attack to my surprise. But Overheat, getting the shield, is going to clear the runway for Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres, we banked the Fly before switching out. Fly is super effective damage, taking down Scrafty and securing the win. Hopping to the final match, we've got one final Macargo mirror for the road. As always, my opponent is going to be on Ember, and I realized that if I'm going to be shielding in a Macargo mirror, I may as well shield the first, as that's what's going to hit the hardest. So I shield the first, go for the Rock Tomb, and there's the catch I was worried about in the last game. They catch the Rock Tomb onto the Medicham and sneak a Psycho Cut. I'm going to re-bank a Rock Tomb for later and send in Galarian Moltres. Moltres already has a very convincing matchup, made even more so by this big Rock Tomb debuff. That means the 2 Ice Punches won't come close to knocking out. I'm just going to look to tank both, overfarm to the max, and then CMP tie Fly to their Ice Punch number 3. This will ensure that I exit with as much residual energy as possible, and Macargo's going to have a very difficult time trying to Ember me down. Fly is actually shielded up by the Medi, and this is amazing because I think this might be 2 Incinerate range. It's going to be very, very close. I send in Macargo looking for the farm down, and I don't get it. I'm forced to switch into Flamigo. I do somehow get a sneak as I catch the Dynamic Punch. I don't know how I got the sneak, and my opponent sends back in the Macargo. Macargo gonna make it to the Rock Tomb. I need to shield. Flamigo is very, very frail. I shield, fire off the Upper Hand. They send in a Scrafty, and they are just fully sacrificing Scrafty now. Scrafty gets absolutely shredded by the Upper Hand. I do get the debuff, but I'm absolutely going to have to fire off energy because I can't quite get that farm down. Upper hand will take the knockout. Back in comes Macargo. I'm just going to throw the upper hand on alignment, and now it all comes down to my opponent needing to predict the combo play. I decide to wait a turn, throw a fast move, and then go for the snipe with Macargo. So we land the Rock Tomb on its intended target, KOing my opponent, and that is a good game. Today's team ended up being a ton of fun to play, having two Pokemon in the back with massive nuke potential with Brave Bird, and even Macargo with Overheat having huge nuke potential as well. It always felt like my opponents never quite had enough shields for how much offensive pressure this team had. I definitely let a few games slip away from me, like the game where Clefable ended up catching that Brave Bird, but all in all the team still ended up going very, very positive. The Love Cup meta definitely feels quite a bit different to how it did on day one with all of these unbans like Moltres, Flamigo now in the meta, Tinkaton, Latios were also unbanned. So there's quite a few new threats that you will have to keep an eye out for when team building, because teams that were basically perfect cores on day one of the meta might not be perfect cores anymore with the addition of Pokemon like Tinkaton especially. So I do think that one tricky thing about running Flamigo is I think it's very difficult to build a Flamigo team that doesn't disrespect one of three Pokemon. I think it's very difficult to build a Flamigo team that doesn't either disrespect Talonflame, disrespect Scizor, or disrespect Medicham. I think that Macargo is probably one of the better core pairings that you can have for Flamigo just because it does a really good job at shutting down Talonflame and shutting down Scizor. A Medicham lead would be pretty catastrophic for this team. I would end up just safe switching the Galarian Moltres and trying to play it out, and if possible, try and generate some kind of shield advantage for Flamigo, as that would realistically be the only way that this team would be able to handle it. But the good news for me is most of the time I saw Medicham as a safe swap. And as a safe swap against this team, that's really nice, because I could continually, game after game, just align into Galarian Moltres, and Galarian Moltres, as long as you have a pretty good IV one, and mine isn't amazing IV, it's like a rank 500 or so, can tank those two dynamic punches and never get Psycho Cut down. So it ends up actually being an extremely convincing counter to Medicham. But I did really enjoy it. These two new unbanned birds, quite fun. I think Galarian Moltres can kind of be slotted into most any Love Cup team and immediately make it better. Galarian Moltres is just very consistent neutrally. There's a reason it's very strong in the current Open Great League meta, and it's just, its neutrals are so convincing. Fly, Sucker Punch, Brave Bird, amazing moveset, and it does such a good job at peeling away opponent shields to set up nasty, nasty Flamigo sweeps. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. Thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.